5 things people get wrong about self-care. Many people get self-care fundamentally wrong when they bash it. The whole concept of self-care has been receiving some bad press and backlash of late, but the main reason for this is that there is a large misunderstanding of what self-care actually is. So let's get rid of the negativity surrounding self-care. Self-care is nothing to do with being selfish. Let's get that straight right now. Here are 5 things people get wrong about self-care. Before we get into any of that though, please make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be notified every single time we post a new video, since that's by far the best way to support the channel. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to it. Number 1. Self-care is not about pampering sessions and treats. A lot of negative stereotypes surrounding self-care seem to be folk who think it's all about buying yourself treats, or going for a massage, or sitting around with your face mask on. Only occasionally might self-care take on one of these forms, but for the most part, self-care is more likely to involve replacing worn-out shoes, or visiting the dentist. It could also be about spending more cash on a lunch in order to make sure you are eating healthily. It could be about quitting so much time watching Netflix and actually catching up on some much needed sleep. Number 2. Self-care is not about your needs being more important than those of others. Another negative stereotype that surrounds self-care is that people think it's about putting your needs first. An example of this would be leaving an extra job at work for someone else to do, a person who has an equally high workload to get through. It's likely that you will have met someone that does use self-care as a tool to ensure that everyone fits in around them. Some will try to use it as a means to dictate terms for activities shared within a group or family setting. An example of this would be if someone says they can't attend your baby shower because it clashes with their child's nap time. It is possible that self-care can involve inconvenience for others, but it's not the norm. If the way you are doing self-care makes things inconvenient for others or starts dictating them, it's time you rethought what you're doing. Self-care should benefit both you and other people. An example of this would be taking time out to spend in nature with your children. It may involve a better bedtime routine with stories that will help everyone wind down together. Or it could involve a once-a-week treat where the whole family gets involved in making homemade pizzas. If you feel that you need to slow down and that you can do this with self-care, other people can easily become a part of your self-care plans. Number 3. Self-care isn't about a list of behavior. The constitution of self-care depends on the situation. Earlier on in the week, I needed to renew my passport, but I also needed to get a nice photo for it. This has been on my to-do list for 3 weeks already, and I really needed to get it done. So let's take a look at this scenario and ask what self-care would be here. It might be saying that a lovely photo for the passport is important, so you will take time to do it at home so you can choose the best one. Or it may be that what is most important to you is to get the passport off your to-do list. In this case, you would opt to run into Costco and get some random worker to take the photo for you. Neither one of these two choices is more self-caring than the other, because, as we said, self-care is situation dependent, and it's also related to balance. If it's been a long time since you did something objectively unimportant just because to you it's important, then the scenario that would be the most self-caring would be to give yourself that experience. On the other hand, it may be more mentally important for you to get rid of something on your to-do list that is nagging you. Getting rid of it will give you the mental freedom you crave. Self-care is about having the psychological flexibility and self-knowledge to make the best choice at the time. This choice may differ at different times. Number 4. Self-care is about both your behaviors and your thinking. How self-cared you may feel can depend on the behaviors you do and don't do, as well as on self-talk. There is an abundance of writings and research in the importance of having self-compassion skills. What this means is having the ability to acknowledge when you feel embarrassed, nervous, or hurt. Self-compassion is about acknowledging that these emotions are part of the universal human experience. You may feel regret or guilt about your earlier behavior, but a person that is self-compassionate will recognize that it is normal to feel that way. Someone who possesses good self-care skills will use their acknowledgement of feeling anxious in order to pursue a goal. He will be able to talk himself through how to move forward from feeling anxious instead of giving up. Good self-care skills also involve being able to detect when you are ruminating and being able to break free from it. Good self-care is also about the capacity to notice that being a perfectionist has tipped over into your being self-sabotaging. When you have good self-care, you have the ability to steer yourself back onto the right path. Number 5. Self-care is about not just solitary, but social activities. When someone feels stressed, the most nurturing thing they can do is to seek human contact, this even applying to introverts. Many people believe that self-care is all about things you do in private, but this is not necessarily the case. It's not all about lounging around in joggers with a face mask on. As an introvert, it is important to reach out to others when you're feeling stressed, even if you're not used to doing so. Self-care also involves letting people into your world and touching base with people that you don't get the chance to see very often. A great example of self-care is making time to meet up with a friend or family member that you always hear of via social media or on the phone. If you only tend to engage in self-caring activities alone, take a look at more social forms of self-care to indulge in. It may be a one-on-one catch-up with a friend you only see in a social group, or it could be joining a club or sporting team that will provide you with a sense of community you can't feel when you're exercising alone. Sometimes, after an overstimulating day, solitary self-care is what you need. But as an introvert or someone who values their emotional self-sufficiency, you shouldn't overlook social forms of self-care. If you need to feel a connection, but also need to take a break from people, try connecting with nature. Go for a walk to distress, or even invest in a plant for your desk that you can look at when you feel stressed. When you buy into the stereotypical idea of what self-care is all about, you will be overlooking forms of self-care that are easily accessible and within your reach. Self-care is not about being selfish or having pamper sessions. It's about caring for yourself in a way that can be potentially very important to your happiness and well-being. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be notified every single time we post a new video, since that's by far the best way to support the channel. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.